In this video, we're going to be doing some cold weather diesel engine troubleshooting. And this video has it all, folks. Freezing temperatures, engine destruction, exhaust smoke, and also me going on a tirade against Caterpillar. Stay tuned. So before this video really gets started, I just wanted to say I've been experimenting with trying to do a topic and do it in the shop instead of just me talking with a white screen behind me. Hopefully it'll be more interesting. Let's get in the video. Hey guys, so we got this 346E here that's hard starting when cold. Now, the list of what hard starting when cold could be is endless. But there's many things you need to check typically. Fuel pressure. One of the biggest ones though is that the sensors are reading accurately. Now what do I mean by that? You have multiple temp sensors on this engine. There's a lot of sensors on this thing that are reading temperature. Also you have pressures. You have boost pressure, you have atmospheric pressure. If any of those are misreading, it's going to be harder starting or start weird, cold, or hot. Now, it is cold outside. How cold, you ask? So this is the day before I was doing a coolant flush, so I just had water and soap in this truck, and it sprang a little leak on the upper radiator hose. It basically, once the water hits the ground, it turns to ice. And this was hot. This was 150 degrees before it fell out of the cooling system. Well, it's snowing. I don't know if you can see that. Yep, you can see them. So it's definitely not 80 degrees. You know, this isn't Sandy Beach's diesel. And my name isn't James, it's Josh, so it's definitely not above 32 degrees. However, let's look at our readings here. Now this is sat overnight. Look at the temperatures. Engine coolant temps 35, intake air temps 36, fuel temps 23. Now it is sure as heck a lot colder than those temperatures. Watch this. Intake air temps 35. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, more like 10 degrees, folks. If the temperature was in years, this thing would be in middle school. Here goes nothing. So let's try to verify the customer's complaint here and start this thing up. It's been off for about 17 hours now. Well, it started, but it's running very poorly. Now, it sounds like there's an engine miss, but we've already identified that the sensors are not reading accurately. Now, the intake air temperature should have dropped immediately once it started getting the cold ambient air temperature of around 10 degrees in it, but as you can see, it's still showing 32 degrees. Our engine RPMs are all over the place, so something's definitely wrong with that. Checking fuel pressure here, we have really good fuel pressure, about 75 PSI. So fuel pressure is suspected to be good. So this is, in a few minutes, we pulled the truck in the shop, and I'm going to be troubleshooting the electrical system here real fast to see, that's our fuel temperature sensor and intake air temperature sensor, and see why they seem to be reading biased high. Maybe there's something wrong with the harness or the ECM or the sensors themselves. And then we have our coolant temperature sensor, which this is the hardest one to access, because it's in the thermostat, or as Cat calls it, regulator housing in the front. Very difficult to get to. If you're going to change this, you'd have to drain the coolant as well. This is the sensor right here. Now, the wiring here, I saw this. There's like a hack repair here with a couple butt connectors, the insulation's falling off. I'm going to fix that a little later, but it's good to know that someone's been into this, and they haven't really been doing any Cat-approved fixes. So what I'm going to be doing here is troubleshooting the electrical system. We're going to be doing some ECM tests here. So I've unplugged the intake manifold air temperature. It should read differently, which it is there, and it should go to voltage high, which means it's an open circuit. So that's good. Now we've unplugged our fuel temperature sensor, and now that should be reading voltage high. So this is basically having the ECM do the testing for you to some extent. Coolant temperature, voltage high, that's good. Now I'm testing the voltage at the plug, and I don't like to backprobe when I can, so I made this T up so you can plug the sensor in, and then read the voltage readings or any sensor readings while it's still normally operating. Now I'm ohming it out between the ECM and all the plugs. Now, you might be thinking, man, that engine ran really poorly. Do you really think it's the sensors reading maybe 20 degrees off? No, I don't 100% think the sensors are causing it to run that badly and cause that much smoke. It probably has a cylinder issue, which we'll get to later in the video, but I don't like leaving things as question marks behind me. I don't like to say, okay, well, we'll troubleshoot, but we know this system over here is not working either. So we're trying to isolate and see if maybe we can figure out what's wrong with the sensors and then go after whatever else is going on. So what I'm doing here is I'm shorting out the wiring to the plugs, and it should go to voltage low, which means basically the ECM is reading correctly, or at least testing with pull-up voltage correctly. So, kind of got the Johnny Bravo hair going on today, but so this truck, I'm doing a screen record right now. It runs really bad. Fuel pressure is pretty consistent, but I don't know if you can hear it. Probably not coming through the audio very well, but the RPMs, I've warmed it up, are very inconsistent. They're going from about 695 up to about 705. Now, generally, if something's running smoothly, it's going to be like 699, 700, 701. You generally don't want more than 1 or 2 RPMs changing, but it's really bop, 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 bop. It's up and down. So something's going on here. I'm going to do a cutout test. Maybe I can isolate what's going on. So here's the screen recording of what I was looking at. If you watch the engine speed, it's kind of jumping all over the place, as I was mentioning. The coolant temperature, intake air temperature, and the fuel temperature seem to be reading accurately when it's warm. It's just when it's cold, they're not getting as low as they should. Now, the engine had sat for close to 18 hours overnight, and it was very, very cold. For it to be showing close to 40 degrees, that's not accurate. So this is what I was finding until we get to the next day. Time for a little more interesting stuff with some Look at this, we have a Cummins in the shop, and it had a dead cylinder. Now, why was it dead? Well, let's just say something looks a little off. Whoa! Look at that rocker arm roller. It is completely trashed. There's actually chunks missing out of it. Not exactly sure what's going on there. It's failed. The camshaft's also been damaged, which we'll show you here in a minute. Pretty bad. The number 5 also was damaged, not quite as badly, but these were pretty bad. This was going to need some major overhead and valve train work here. Here's a picture with the camshaft out, and look at the lobes. It's just chunked. It's really weird failure. Usually, at least on the Cats, obviously it's not a Cat, you'll get kind of a line going, and then it'll wear right through. On this one, it's just disintegrating, basically. Morning, folks. It's the next day. So, running auxiliary ECM here, trying to bypass the ECM suspected problem. It's even colder today. So we've got a clear liner in here. Here's our temperature. It's showing -4 there. -3. Now next to where our temp sensor is, a whopping 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what does our computer say? Our computer shows 27, 28, 19. Obviously, we have a problem here, and it's not the frickin' temperature. This thing's been off for 16 hours, so yeah. That indeed was hard starting. So it's obviously even colder this morning, and this is even harder starting than the previous day. So all of our sensor checks, none of that really found the issue. So the only thing different this morning, other than being cold, is we have that clear line ran there. And you can see it started here, and it's doing the same thing. It's running really poorly, lots of smoke, and just not a very good running engine. So I I'm basically done with trying to figure out why the sensors are misreading at this point. I suspect that the sensors are actually misreading themselves because we've bypassed the ECM. We don't have any bubbles in the fuel. That's really good because you can have fuel pressure and also have bubbles. Now, one thing I did do is just to verify that the sensor is misreading. I went ahead and I got an engine coolant temperature sensor, and I plugged it in and bypassed the one that is in the engine just to see if it would actually show the correct temperature. And as you can see, ambient air temperature, it's plugged in. Now the truck's just been sitting. I haven't ran it other than a couple seconds, and it's reading correctly. Now, what is the actual cause? Well, the biggest cause I could find was number 3 injector. The injector, when cold, and I mean stone cold, is not firing at all. That cylinder is actually a dead cylinder. Now, this is a long block from CAT, and so pretty much all this work should be warranty. And here's the, you can see the number 3 hole is wet compared to the one on the right, which would be for your rear cylinders. And it's just dumping raw fuel into the exhaust. That's why we're getting so much smoke. Now, some of the things I found from the CAT long block that I didn't like was there was that little chunk missing out of the head. Not real big. Whoever put the head gasket on, there's this big old damage mark right there. It's like they pinched it or something. The spacer plate had pinch marks too from looking like they put on the dowsing correctly or something. Now, these might be kind of nitpicky things, but they're things that I would not have done until I found this. Oil leak behind the water pump. This is your main oil gallery plugs. There's multiples on this engine. I found that they were wet. This is how tight they were. This is a screwdriver, and this is from the factory. This is a main oil gallery plug. They were all this tight. They were so loose they could have fallen out and thrown frickin' hot oil all over the turbo or something. There's actually a spec for basically pipe plugs. These are pipe plugs that you would use some sort of pipe dope or something on to seal. It's basically hand tightened on 2 additional turns. This is how many threads were holding it in, only like 2 or 3 threads. On 4 of these. It's very frustrating to see this from Caterpillar. I'm assuming this is not how they do everything. A lot of the stuff we see from CAT's actually, well assembled, unlike this particular engine. Now, that one I couldn't get back in and tighten unless I removed all of the brake saver lines and stuff. So I decided to use this updated plug, which you can tighten with a wrench. Now, I did have a problem, though, and that's this one. And it looks like it is installed just as tight, meaning not tight at all, and it's pretty much impossible to get to. I can't even turn on my screwdriver just because there's no room. Now, I don't want to pull the whole oil cooler assembly off, so I needed to figure out a way to get it off. Now, maybe a pipe wrench or something, but I just bought this weird-looking tool on Amazon, and it's a Knipex, and it looks stupid. It's got a Raptor-style plier, although it kind of looks like a parrot. I'll put an Amazon affiliate link here. If you're going to get one, get it through the link. It really helps the channel out. But it really, really grabs. Now, I really like Knipex pliers. They're, I would consider them the best made pliers that I've ever had. And this one, from just testing with it, I haven't actually tried it on a real application yet. Until I filmed this, it's kind of fortuitous that this happened. As you can see, it grabs it and turns it pretty much right away. Now, this is really bad spot. A pipe wrench probably would have worked too, however, it would have damaged the plug. This one grabs it pretty tight, and it turned it right away, although it was not very tight. Now, if you're wondering why I had the cylinder head off, that's because the head gasket was leaking oil there, and we were doing all these repairs. As you can see, it grabs in an odd way. It doesn't damage the threads. I'm pretty happy with the purchase here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.